Imagine, if you will, a twilight zone where all the food is grown with synthetic chemicals. And after it's grown, it's thrown in trucks and hauled to these big buildings where it's processed and packaged with more synthetic chemicals. And after a few years, all the citizens start wandering around with these strange physical, mental, and hormonal issues, severe illnesses. Death rates have climbed severely. Many are obese, and even some men think they're women. Yeah, that's the twilight zone we're talking about. And then these people end up at these gigantic castle like buildings talking to health experts wearing white lab coats. And after testing and much inspection, they're given a piece of paper and told to go to a building with more people wearing white lab coats, who hand them bottles to address their health issues with more synthetic chemicals. Welcome to the Twilight Zone, America. You're in it.
Welcome to the Original Fighter's Voice. I'm your host, Don Mcguire. I thought I should post that video. Somebody I know and somebody who means a lot to me shared it, so I thought I would share it with you. Without further ado, the UFC Hall of Fame two-time world champion, my brother, Mr. Pat Miletich.
How are you, Don?
To be honest, I could be better, but nowadays you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, so you got to kind of enjoy the moment. Like I told people that asked me, what were we going to discuss tonight? It's the fighter's voice. It's my guest's voice. It's the people who I bring on my show, I bring from my heart. You've been on my walk for many, many years now. And, I think a lot of people hide their feelings because they think other people might not agree with them. But I think they tried to, but they couldn't. I think everybody has a voice, and I think everybody should be able to share their voice without government impingement or infringement. I'm a person that I've been doing this show for, about 22 years now. I've never shied away from anything, and I never will. And if people don't want to listen, that's their right, that's their opportunity. But your voice is just equally as appropriate as mine. So with that being said, I'm glad you're on the show, and you're such a tremendous gentleman in my walk, and you've created so much in my life. And now to see that you're helping people, you're finding a way to create an option for people, it's tremendous. What has this walk instilled in Pat Miletich?
That that not everybody has the same experiences, doesn't make the same observations, and might have a different viewpoint based out of their experiences and observations of those experiences. So, for me, in my life, I just have what I'd found to be many times a unique viewpoint in the world. It's the viewpoint that has become my truth. And so that's just kind of the way it is. And, it's at odds with everything the news might be telling you, where the money's at, with large corporations, things like that. And sometimes my viewpoints are met with very stern criticisms or opposition, but I just generally try to meet people where they're at and just try to make points or leave them with questions for them to go do research on their own to find their own truth. Right?
Yeah, I like that because, everybody cries about freedom. Everybody, says that we need freedom, but not everybody understands freedom. Freedom is a right for me to say something, whether you agree with it or not. But that's freedom. They can turn around and say whatever they want about me, and I have to accept it because freedom goes both ways.
Sure.
And people don't understand that, and especially you think they would in this day and time. You think they would understand that just because I say something, even if it offends you, I have the right to say that. I wanted you on here tonight because I think a lot of things have got flipped upside down in this world. Especially since October, my son has been fighting for his life. And what I see is a byproduct after byproduct after byproduct. You know, many know you for being a great, tremendous UFC fighter and a Hall of Famer, but they don't know that you look and create and search out paths to help people in their walks, to help people in life. And I know I used to watch your show. You were eons ahead of your time. You know, what is it inside the heart of Pat Miletich that no matter what, even when they push you down on one knee, what has you standing up and fighting for the people, giving the people the truth?
It comes down to my children and your children and all of our children, to be honest with you, because, you know, in general, I think most people who are aware recognize that all the systems that are built in society these days, there's a lot of misinformation. You know, the banking industry, the medical industry, the agriculture industry, the education, systems. These are all systems, right? All of these different categories and all these things that have been built are systems, and they're full of a lot of untruths. We'll just put
Yeah.
it that way. There's a lot of things that are very detrimental, very controlling, fear-based conditioning, all that sort of stuff that goes into all these systems that if you don't conform and follow these systems, you're going to pay a price. And I've certainly, being outspoken, I've certainly paid a price. But, in terms of health, my own health journey, in terms of when I was, a kid and having respiratory illness my whole childhood, by the time I got to 19, I was sick of doctors not being able to figure it out. So I started doing research and uh, found answers on my own. That's what we have to do. Is many times we have to, outside of these systems that we're all pounded with and ingrained with, that we have to go outside the box and seek out the real solutions for these systems that have been built, so to speak. So in the allopathic medical world, they were not able to find answers for my respiratory illness and what I had my whole, like I said, my childhood. So I had to do research on outside the box and find substances, natural occurring substances that were concentrated nutrients that healed my respiratory system in 10 days. And that's the only reason, again, that I won a world title was, it's the same type of stuff that I encouraged my athletes to use for their endurance, for their recovery, for, all those things. And the ones that use those type of substances had great success. Um, I've seen it numerous times over the past since I took care of my own respiratory system 35 years ago. Numerous people, not just athletes, but people who were suffering from all kinds of different manifestations of whatever inflammation they had. Um, the symptoms basically went down a lot or completely disappeared if they sought out the true knowledge that was out there. Right, the literal 6,000 years of plant-based knowledge and understanding. And that doesn't mean be a vegan. That doesn't mean any of that stuff. It means the colloidal minerals that our bodies are supposed to have that actually do that benefit our cells, our mitochondria, and our DNA and our immune system in huge ways. Those are the things that you need to put in your body if you want to make a difference in your life in general. That's without a doubt. That's 100% confirmed. I've just seen it over 35 years, thousands of times. Um, so the people that are not educated in that stuff, the people that are educated conversely to that, people from the agriculture industry, people from chemistry, people that are in the medical fields, all this sort of stuff, they were never educated about this. And it's a sad situation, to be honest with you, in my mind, that they're very intelligent people who then can diagnose or you know say, for instance, an agronomist or soil expert can look at soil, see where it's deficient, and then they have a myriad of things that they can put in the soil, but they also answer a lot of these questions with chemical compounds, which are the synthetic versions of the actual real molecules many times, right?
Yeah.
that fool the plants into uptake or fool the human cell into uptake, all these different things, and then cause immune issues for plants. So we'll just go with plants. If you put synthetic petroleum-based fertilizers in your soil, your plants are going to absorb those because the nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus molecules look familiar to the plant, so the plant will uptake it and grow, but its immune system is garbage, right? So then nature is going to kill anything that's sick, and nature would be that soil, right? Or the bugs or whatever, the fungus. So then you have to use failed antibiotics to treat the plants and kill everything in the soil, denature the soil so that your crop will actually survive to harvest. But what, in the 70s when this stuff all started, it's called the Green Revolution, ironically. They were growing huge crops and feeding the world and all this stuff, that they were telling farmers, doing these great things. But what we're now seeing is massive illness amongst Americans. And by all means, or by no means are farmers the ones that are guilty for this. We're all guilty. All of us that use underarm deodorants with aluminum and parabens in them and shampoos and all the chemicals, the chemical cleaners, the lawn care products, on and on and on, that we see the manifestation of that in massive amounts of illness amongst Americans. It could be mental, physical, hormonal, all of that stuff, right? And it's all so-called, as they say, coming home to roost, the past certainly decade, and it's getting worse.
Okay, let me put this comment. My brother from Canada, I got other comments before him, but see, people get it. Living life chemical free. You know, I watched a documentary because I'm a geek, and I didn't even understand our food was handled this way. There are some crops that we don't even get because they have to sit in isolation or incubation for 3-4 years before they're allowed to be mass sold to the public, because the chemicals that they have to use to create the crops, to keep the bugs and other things, so they have to take it in and they have to let all this chemical evaporate or whatever. Why is it that the public isn't told about this chemical affiliation with our food? Because if you look at some of the things that are man-made, and you go look them up and look what they do to the human body, but yet they attach it to medicine. They attach it to everyday food items. It dismays me because I, for one, don't have an immune system. So we talked about this before. I couldn't go through chemotherapy when I had cancer, because it would kill me. And also when the jab was out, I couldn't have that. And thank God my virologist wouldn't let me have it because he said it would kill me. Why is the medical field so aboard with this program? And there's only such a minute amount of doctors that are willing to tell the truth or share the truth.
Well, I mean, again, let's go back to we'll talk about the agriculture industry, or any system that's built, Don, the banking system, all these different systems. People's livelihoods depend on it. People are expecting that check to feed their children every week. There's a lot of people who are doctors, who went to school, became a doctor because they wanted to help people, but they're trapped now in that system. Now they're more than willing to drive that Mercedes Benz and live in that big house, but if they would, and these are conversations that I've had before, if you would use your intelligence in a way that you incredibly can diagnose, you've got a myriad of testing, protocol that they go through for whatever it is that somebody might be suffering from, and then apply the 6,000 years of knowledge to naturally occurring substances from this planet, as long as they were grown without chemical inputs and that they're pure, high-grade substances, to help alleviate these situations in mankind. And but most of them, look, if I'm making $250,000, $500,000, $1 million a year, my life's good. My life's good. Most go to bed and probably sleep well at night. I understand that. There's massive numbers of Americans that are involved in the agriculture industry. They use chemicals. We know those chemicals cause harm. We know many of these chemicals kill the soil, kill every living organism, insect, everything in the soil. But they're still making a lot of money, and they have a pension eventually waiting at the end of the line for them, right? So I have to be understanding in that. Now, there's a lot of people from the conventional agriculture world who I've witnessed over the past several years jumping ship and coming over to the other side, who understand, and maybe we're starting to say to themselves, what am I doing for the world, for my kids? Because we're at a point now, certainly in the grain belt and other places around the country where these chemicals have been used for decades, and we've got major problems. And what a lot of Americans don't understand is that the nutrients and the substances that are in the soil, that's what's in your body. That's what makes up your body. So when we do that to the soil, well, it rains, the water runs off, it goes into waterways, and we drink the water, we eat the food, and we breathe the air with these chemicals in it. And then they go to, again, to those processing plants for food, and they use more chemicals. And then we end up having manifestations of buildups of these substances in our bodies. And then we go to professionals, experts, and the only answer that they have are limited tools in a toolbox that they're given, and they have to stay within those parameters or they lose their license. They're stuck in a system. They're slaves in a system. So I just do my best to try and, like I said, meet people where they're at right now. It's just educate Americans. And if people, the thing is that there's answers for what people are suffering from. There's substances that people can put in their bodies, a ton of different combinations of antioxidants and other substances that will assist your body in removing those things from your cells and correct a lot of the problems that you're having. And it just comes down to doing a little bit of research. Look, if my kids' health depends on it, their future depends on it, I want to make sure that they have the best chance possible. And I've been doing that for 25 years. So, for instance, when we look at, I watch all these kids, I talk to my kids and they're like, everybody's sick at school. Well, my kids, I mean, they might get the sniffles, but they just, at 21, 19, and 10, they don't get sick. Like, they might be a little under the weather now and then because people are shedding stuff on them, right? That's a term from the hog industry and other livestock industries when it comes to inoculating pigs, for instance, right? They're the people that have these toxins in their body. Eventually, your body is trying to get rid of it. You will shed it out of your pores, your mouth, out your nose, and urine and feces. So, but I witness everybody else lining up for these so-called treatments and telling their kids to line up in the gymnasium at school to get them. And I shake my head based on my experience and my research and my knowledge, where it's none of the things that they tell you that are causing you to have physical maladies. It is the fact that you have environmental toxins, synthetic chemicals and heavy metals trapped in your cells that are destroying your cellular and mitochondrial function and screwing up your DNA, your genetic expression, they call it, and your immune system screwed up. So now you are vulnerable to all those yeasts, molds, bacterias, fungus, and so on and so on. And so if I have a bulletproof immune system, I'm pretty safe. I'm actually very safe. So if we learn the truth about how to protect ourselves and our families, then we look at, okay, you got to wear a mask. We look at that as complete lunacy, and we understand it as complete lunacy. It's a fallacy. It's a complete lie.
Yeah.
that you got to stay 6 feet away from somebody. No, actually, I want to give them a hug. I'd like to give them a hug because I don't have to worry about that, right? None of it. And so that's the thing that people have to snap out of it. And even the people that know the truth may, as you mentioned earlier, worry about what other people are going to think about it. But at some point, you're not going to be here anymore, and it's going to be just your kids. And because you conformed and got on a knee when they told you to do what they wanted you to do, now your kids have to live with that. And if you're willing to do that, I don't know what to tell you. But it comes down to, I would like my children to be able to go, yeah, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that because I know the truth. I know the truth. And so these industries, these systems, again, have been built on basically mostly lies. And that's what we're dealing with today.
Well, let's take it from the standpoint of my son. My son has one of the rarest spine infections that doctors have ever seen in this country. He has osteomyelitis with, what is it? It's mold and
Bacterial, mold and
back.
bacterial.
No, it's osteomyelitis with a fungal mold yeast
Okay.
infection, and it's a
Okay.
yeast infection. And in order to treat this, they have to use a microfungal. So they're putting in poison back into my son. And what caught me at odd is because I'm a diabetic, okay, and I'm type 1 and I'm severe, so I get these little bumps on my head once in a while for my diabetes. Well, I realized the same thing that my son's having to take is in that shampoo. They're giving my son the same thing that they clean the gym showers with, but they're intravenously pumping this into my son's system.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the archaic, literally, it's so counterintuitive to health what they do with across the board human illness in general, that when you know the basic, just the very basics even of the truth, you look at it and go, this is this is literally it's abuse. It's
Yeah.
a level of abuse that and the American public being, we depend. Why would I want to depend on somebody else for um, anything when it comes to information that could better my life?
Yeah.
Anything. So that's the thing is, so what they're doing to your son, again, in agriculture, pesticides, herbicides, or insecticides specifically, and herbicides and fungicides. They're treating your son with a fungicide that they would spray on crops to kill the fungus in the soil so that the plants could make it through it. Now, the plants, mind you, have been genetically modified. That's what GMOs are, to survive the poisons, but nothing else will. So you've got to say to yourself, okay, maybe, just maybe, if we were to treat him with things that would remove the substances that are jacking up his immune system to cause him to be vulnerable to these things in the first place,
Yeah.
well, we wouldn't have to do all of this, right? He never would have got it in the first place, most likely.
Yeah, because
That's
they
what
don't
we're
even know
doing.
where it came from. They have no idea where it came from. First they said he was one of two cases in the United States. Stayed in the hospital, was on IVs 24/7. When he got out for the 2-3 weeks, we had to take him every day for IVs. Now they're talking he's going to be on this microfungal for the next 2 years. I can tell you what, I'm going to take him to a holistic infectious disease doctor. And this man treated me and kept me alive. And now, because at first we're going to have to do a transfer, and you know how difficult they will, be on that side. But we got it to where we can have home health. So now that I got my son at home, I can take him anywhere I want.
Right.
Once getting him out of the hospital was the most pertinent thing.
Dude,
But John,
just
it's
think about this. There's people with small children in this country happening today that when they say, well, we're going to do this, this is our protocol and we're going to do this. And if you look for a second opinion, in certain states, they will call Department of Human Services and take your children from you.
Oh yeah.
That's what they're doing. That's because um, I'm trying to remember the document, the bill or whatever that they passed that joined the medical system with the Department of Justice. So they can take your children if you don't agree with their mode of their protocols. That's some scary, scary stuff. That's some Weimar Germany level stuff, brother. I mean, people
Yeah.
need to go, wait a minute. Hold on. They can take your children for just simply saying, I'm gonna go get a second opinion. That's
Yeah.
what can happen.
I got some comments. Do you mind if I read some comments real quick? Because I really like this one, but I also
Yeah.
want to give everybody their prop. Jonathan Cole says it's like big pharma creating medicine that I have one or two positive and massive negatives. People don't understand old school farming instead of modern day big chemical company destroying the ag industry. I've farmed and raised beef almost for 30 years, and he gets it. But let me go
Right.
back because there's a lot of people that wanted to say hi, and I don't mean to. I don't like to disrespect people on my show. My brother from
No, that's
Canada,
fine. Absolutely.
Brian Holderson, says hello, Pat and
Hi,
Don.
Brian.
And then my brother Paul Driscoll, they call him Little Holmes. Him and Larry Holmes are great friends. He's also from
Okay.
Canada.
Awesome.
He says hello, Don and Pat. And then my friend from Brazil, he says my friends, much respect. And his mother is even joining us on the show tonight. She said sending good
That's awesome.
vibes.
Hello.
And let me see. There was another. Oh, Pat, you know how much I love my grandfather. So when my grandfather passed away, I always missed him so dearly. And so a good friend of mine does a show, Randy Kamish Gordon out of New York, and I met Artie Lamparella, and Artie Lamparella became my adopted grandfather, and I just love this man to death. He's helped me get through all of the darkness that I'm living through now. And like Brian Holderson said, living life chemical free. They are all owned by big pharma.
Yeah.
And Nate Wren says, I'm loving every minute. Very informative show today. I'm learning from the show tonight more than I did in high school agriculture and biology and science combined. And he's
That's
a young
beautiful.
photographer and boxer out of California. You know, um, just a couple more and then we'll get back.
Yeah, no problem.
Gio says, Nate Wren, I agree with you 100%. After I started to debate with the teacher, I got kicked out. They didn't want me to mess with their system.
Right.
And then he said, I swear I could listen to Pat Miletich on a podcast all day throughout the day and never be bored. They need to give him some Howard Stern or Joe Rogan like money for his show time. I found out, because you know quite well that I'm just going to say it. They can take my show down if they want.
Well, you can say it in ways that aren't so obvious too. That's what we can do.
Let's just say the front runner in certain aspects of this election, I've correlated with him and Herschel Walker and other people back in the day. And I used to have the ideology left wing, right wing. They're all parts of the same bird. And I'm starting to see the way this trend has transformed and conformed. It's not whether you're on that side of the aisle or this side of the aisle. It's how much of this gets put in your pocket. Now I'm seeing because I'm 61 years old, so now I'm seeing a government that is not by the people nor for the people. And it's disturbing. I sit here and I see my beautiful state being destroyed. I see an influx of illnesses being brought from other aspects of the world.
Right.
And in my heart, it's planned by design because we've never had certain issues and illnesses that are showing up now.
Right.
And, people don't understand whether you're what other wing of the bird you are. Your kids, your family, are going to have to live with what is being brought into this country.
Right.
Is there any way that people can protect themselves from the mass hysteria and influx of illness that is coming into our country?
Yeah, there's lots of ways, natural ways, right? So it's proven that these chemical products, whether it's cleaning products, agriculture products, big P products, all these different products cause hormonal, physical, mental issues, right? Illness. Um, for the people that are suffering from particular different types of these illnesses, say mental. Everybody also through TV, digital media, all these different things, we're being programmed with our emotions, not logic, but emotions. So fear-based conditioning, all of this stuff, combined with the chemicals that we are building up in our cells, it makes us very vulnerable, right? So if we look at atrazine alone, which is a herbicide, it destroys hormonal levels in boys and girls. So when you look at what's going on in the country with, say, for instance, little Johnny wanting to be called Jane and wearing a dress, that doesn't just happen, right? It's happening en masse, and everybody's where genetics come into play generally is what it is how your body's going to deal with those inputs, those toxins, and how your body's going to manifest the inflammations. Where's it going to take place? Is it going to be arthritis? Is it going to be respiratory? Is it going to be digestive? Is it going to be mental? Is it going to be hormonal? So certain groups of people are going to manifest things differently. So for those poor souls, if I love people and I love children, those kids are suffering from chemical, literal poisoning, right? So to educate the parents and the teachers on what's causing this, instead of going along with the psychological operation and saying it's love and inclusion and creating banners and flags and all kinds of stuff for it, that would be probably the best thing to do for those children to help them develop correctly. But no, a lot of people go along with the operation, the psychological part of it, which the psychological thing, you can see, you don't just create those things for free. It costs billions of dollars in marketing to create the psychological operation that goes along with the physical condition that you've created in massive amounts of children or human beings. So by going along with that operation, part of the operation, I am making myself complicit in crimes against children, right? So instead of educating myself on the things that are causing these physical ailments and children not to develop correctly, and calling that out and saying we need to reverse course, school boards across the country, for instance, putting up flags and going along with it and having meetings, and we're just gonna love them, and we're gonna, well, no, that's actually, you're taking part in a crime. You're taking part in a crime against children. That's so let's stop the bullshit and let's be honest here. So that's the type of stuff that I'm talking about. And it's hard for people to admit they've been duped, but America on numerous fronts have fallen for, as my co-host Jeff Wilson from my old podcast used to say, Americans en masse are falling for the old banana in the tailpipe on numerous fronts. And it's literally, if it wasn't so tragic, I would laugh. If it wasn't so horrible, I would laugh. If it wasn't children that were being targeted, I would laugh. So we have to, at some point, come together on this and say, listen, man, if you really love children, you're going to do what's right, and you're going to do some research. I know that's tough to do real research. It's there's some elbow grease involved, but we really have to show love to these people by helping them, right? By actually helping them. So that's really that's the sort of stuff that we're talking about. But somebody said, live life chemical free. Well, you can't. I could I could eat perfectly out of my backyard. I could make sure that I'm drinking out of the well and making sure that I have a frequency machine and a purification system to drink perfect water out of my own well. All of these things, which we do, our own honey, which the bees get organic inputs, not chemical medicines. Um, and so they're producing great honey, all these things. Um, but I'm still not going to be able to live chemical free because if I have to travel, I might have to drink water, bottled water. God knows what's in that. I'm going to eat food out of restaurants. What were the inputs in the salad? How was the salad grown? I surely don't know. The cow that I eat, the steak that I eat, well, was it hormones and a bunch of other stuff? Was it, given that sort of stuff? So I can't live chemically free. So the only way that I can do my best to do that was the things that I mentioned before by growing your own food if you can, which there's hydroponics for people that live in apartments. You can do hydroponics, a lot of that sort of stuff. And go to farmers that aren't doing that to their cows, their chickens, all that sort of stuff. But then also the inputs that you can put in your body, the concentrated nutrients that you can take to clean what's in your cells out every single day and give yourself the best chance and give your children the best chance at developing correctly. Again, protecting your mitochondrial function, your cellular function, your DNA, because that's the signature of your creator, and then your gut biome, the balance of your gut biome. And those things generally result in, a really good immune system, really good athletic performance, all those things.
I have a comment here, and he's an adaptive athlete, and I'm going to put his comment up because I truly understand. His name is Charles Wilton. He's a wheelchair athlete. He said, they tried to do this to me. Medical professionals tried to do stuff like this, especially disabled people. They think that people like me are dumb enough to go along with it. Charles, it isn't just you. I've been through 253 surgeries. Tomorrow will be my 254th. Pat, what type of advice would you give somebody that is handicapped, bound to the system, like Charles here? What advice would you give to somebody like that, brother?
Find a homeopathic doctor as fast as you can. Find a credentialed, intelligent, honest homeopath, and find the real answers for your health. The real answers, right? That's what I would say 100% of the time.
Brian Halderson says it's all about control. Of course. See, what I've seen in this system, and I can't speak for every system, but even in the medical system, after the virus, what they did was they made it to where your primary care doctor can no longer treat you. So what you do, you go to the primary care, they write you a referral. You go to that person, they write you another referral. And ultimately, you'll finally get to somebody 2 or 3 or 4 referrals later. But what's happened? Your insurance has already paid out 4 times just for you to get something that your primary care doctor should have done. What I've seen is a microcosm in the medical field that it's disgusting. If you knew how many medications they try to cram down my throat every day.
Imagine.
I mean, people say, oh, well, Don, you're only on 27 different medications. Well, some pills are 3 times a day. Some pills are 4 times a day. Some pills are 6 times a day. By the time you correlate it out, why should I eat? I've already eaten a couple hundred pills. What does that type of hindrance do to the body's biomechanism, organisms, functions?
Well, it's damaging in so many different ways. Look, you look at the side effects of each different one. You got to get the whole list of them. And so if I say, for instance, injure my elbow or my shoulder and it hurts and there's swelling, that's inflammation, right? So inflammation, obviously, on an injury, it's telling you you've been hurt, you've been injured, right?
Yeah.
So when I take something that causes side effects, that's your body telling you you're being injured, and then they disregard that. When you talk about, like, my girlfriend, she hit a deer the other day in her vehicle, and she had a headache, and she goes, "I'm just going to go get checked out just in case, whatever." And he wanted to prescribe muscle relaxers and another medication, and the side effects were, one of them was headaches. She's got a headache. That's why she's there. But the guy just totally disregarded that. The doctor that was there, and they're just not thinking for themselves. That's the problem, is that many Americans are not thinking for themselves. And that's why we're in the situation that we're in so many different areas, is people just weren't thinking for themselves. And look, all of us can be manipulated in numerous ways. I mean, at 18, I remember taking a flu, what?
Yeah.
It almost killed me. It literally almost killed me. It destroyed me. And I'd never been so violently ill in my life. And it literally took me out. And I said, well, that's enough of that. And at 19, I figured out my health issues, my lifelong health issues, and, haven't gotten one since, of course. But that's the thing, that, they've been giving the flu vaccine for what, like 60, 70 years or more.
Yeah.
And every single year for 25 years, I've been saying this every single year. You see the signs all over grocery stores, drugstores, all this. Get your flu shot, get your flu shot, get your flu season, flu season. Everybody gets it. What happens? Everybody gets the flu. Everybody gets it. Did you ever think for 1 minute that they might be putting something into you that's causing a problem?
Mm-hmm.
Did it ever dawn on you? It's at some point people have to go, wait a minute, pull the banana out of the tailpipe and figure this out. Because again, when we talk about this stuff, it's, you can't patent anything that naturally exists, that's created by God or nature, right? You can't do it. You can only patent things that have been manufactured, created, systems, again, or laboratory work, things like that. So when we go back to the late 70s and we talk about something like small POX, right?
Yeah.
Well, ever since then, everything that's caused a pan/dem/ick, every single one of those has numerous patents on them, and then the treatment for them also has a patent. So that means the gain/of/function, which is creating a bi/o/weapon, it all had to come from mankind and laboratories. At least 50 years of that. And when you know how to do trademarking, and you know how to search, do test searches for trademarks and patents, and you know the system, then you can look up the patent. You can look at the ingredients in each product, and then you look at the product that correlates with the next round of illness. It's in there. It's literally written in plain in the English. So aviary influenza is in it. And then the next one happens to be bird/flu. At what point do people not fucking wake up?
Yeah.
Look, it's really not that difficult to do a little legwork, man. Do a little legwork. That's all I ask people to do. And I truly care about human beings. But at some point you go, hey, man, God gave us free will. it's for us to all decide. I've made some really horrible decisions in my life, and it's been publicly put out there. That's something that, is something I have to correct, and I have. But when you go and get these things or take your children to get these things, there's a lot of parents out there who are anti because they've seen what it's done to their children, right?
Yeah.
And so I just ask people to do the research, man, and start saying, "Whoa, hold on a second. I need some education on the subject matter so that I know how to talk to my doctor or my child's doctor and address these situations," right? And that's super important right now. It's so important that if you don't do it, it could cost you your life.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. You know, excuse me. How is a patent or how is something correlated and put on the paperwork and got a trademark when it hasn't even existed yet? You go back to 2001, 2002, and even as far as, as early as 2013, there were patents on a situation that happened in the United States. How was there already patents? How was there already trademarks on the medication and things in that regard when the situation hadn't even taken place yet?
Well, because here's the thing. Those certain, what they call these tiny little things with spikes on them, may have existed and have existed in the animal world. So they have to do gain/of/function
Yeah.
research and create the bio/web/pun for that to then be contagious amongst humans. That's the patents, right? On the revving up of that so that it is contagious amongst humans or more contagious amongst humans. And they call that, zoology, right? The fancy word for it is zoology. So that's where those patents come from. And when people do the research on their own and realize that what I'm saying is true, they'll realize just how severe the situation is. That, certain situations have happened in history. I'll just use 1930s Weimar Germany. Disease was rampant. Human illness was rampant. Financial issues were rampant. Division was rampant. They were martyring a so-called leader at the time. All these different things, and the companies that produced products that we've been talking about in agriculture and health, those companies were very big. One of them was back then was called IG Farben, which some major companies today were part of that, subsidiaries of that exist in America today that produce products for agriculture and for health. So we're just a continuation of their experiments. That's all we are, right?
Yeah.
And so people have to understand that, recognize it. And if all these people would stop, this summer, God knows what's going to happen. It's an election year. So people are going to be programmed emotionally to go out in the streets and, cause all kinds of havoc and block traffic and all this other shit. Well, if they just head over to those corporate headquarters that are responsible for destroying immune systems and the soil and everything else, go raise hell over there where you belong, and then you're actually doing something, right?
Actually standing up.
Stop attacking your fellow citizens for thinking differently. Go over to the people that are responsible, that are making billions and billions and billions of dollars. They have more money than most nations. Maybe go throw a wrench in the works over there instead of beating up, somebody who disagrees with you politically. So I don't talk politics anymore at all. I talk just simple common sense, soil health, human health, and everything in between. And generally, I'm not going to run into a whole lot of argument. I've had doctors confront me and stuff, and I just go, "Hey, man, name one illness that you can cure. One. None.
You can't.
They can't do it. They can't do it. But yet you went to school, you're making a lot of money per year, and you can't cure one of them. Not a single fucking one.
Nope.
Nothing. And so
Look at me. I mean, I have a choice. I mean, my pancreas doesn't produce insulin, so I mean, I'm kind of stuck. But when I used a certain type of insulin, that was created by big, whatever, I was allergic to it. Because they don't want to pay for the right insulin. They want to pay for a genetically modified, and
right.
it damn near killed me. I was allergic to it, and so yes, they complain and gripe that they have to pay that much for my insulin. But you know what? I'm a veteran. I have extra insurance just to cover that purpose. But I know a lot of my friends in Canada really loved your product before, and a lot of your ideologies before. A lot of people that I know were asking me today, about super soil and different things of this nature. Where can people find that on the internet, or where can they get in touch with you?
People can go to chemicalfreebody.com, and they can get the products there. Super Soldier is my partnership product with Tim over there. So they can pick it up over there. I advise people to get the Greens 85 with it, because that's a massive amount of nutrients as well, to put into your cell after you've removed the garbage out of your cells. And that we've found with pro athletes to people suffering from, different illnesses, dramatic differences. And so those greens are all sprouted greens. So all the nutrients and enzymes from an entire plant are in each one of those tiny little sprouts in the mix. So they can get a lot of benefit from that in those sprouts. So yeah, chemicalfreebody.com. And then Doc Will Spencer and I are partnering on some products as well. Doc Will is a absolute genius. He's a soil reclamation expert, an ag expert, and a homeopathic doctor. And so, for your friend that's in the ag industry, what we're doing with people is we're slowly shifting people over from not only conventional, then to what they call biological, which is a combination between organic and conventional farming. Then people a lot of times will go to organic. It's hard to just get somebody to go from conventional straight to like the top way of doing things. They have what's called beyond organic, but the real way to grow food, to have massive amounts of nutrients in it, to have beautiful, healthy, living soil that's got massive amounts of real microorganisms, not GMO microorganisms, which Big Ag is putting out there now. We're all about soil health. We're putting out microorganisms in the soil. Yeah, they're genetically modified to deal with the poisons that you're spraying. You want real microorganisms, and that is called biodynamic farming. And so a lot of people look at biodynamic farming and think that it's kind of taboo, hocus pocus, weirdo stuff, because back in the old day, they would take, like bull horns off a bull, actual animal, and they would pack it with different natural occurring substances, and they would bury it underground. Well, what they were doing was very scientific, actually, is out of that bullhorn would grow microorganisms that would spread into the soil in that area. Then they would dig up that soil, put that into water, create a compost tea, and then treat their crops and their soil with that. And therefore, the microorganisms would spread out, and the mycelium, and then that would break down a lot of the nutrients in the soil into life energy type nutrients that were bioavailable to the plants. And so therefore their crops would have, they'd have bigger yields, healthier, the brick measurements, which is nutrient levels in soil, or in plants, in fruit and vegetables, is way above that of any other form of growing food, even organic. And so it's a total different level of farming. People can research Rudolf Steiner and start to learn about this. And then they can look into Karl Oppenheimer, the nephew of the Oppenheimer that created the nuclear bomb. Oppenheimer, Karl, saw what his uncle did and said, I've got to correct this. So he went around the world and he collected and cataloged the best, most durable, most effective microorganisms on the planet, from the tops of mountains to jungles to swamps to sulfur vents at the bottom of oceans. And he would collect and catalog those. And then when you give those in what's called vortex machines in water, the nutrients they need, they will expand, they will multiply. And then you can spray that on your crops and your soil and your garden or whatever. And you're going to have massive, massive yields, huge yields.
Let me ask you a question, because I'm intrigued by this. I'm not a farmer. A lot of my friends are. Yes, I do live in the Midwest. But when I was a kid, my family didn't want me, so they sent me to military school up in Alaska. I lived
That was
on,
their way of showing love, though.
yeah. I lived at the school, but during the holidays and summer, I lived in Nenana, right where the Nenana and the Tanana River met in Hawaii. But I was amazed with these Athabascans, how they lived. Okay, they lived naturally with these fish wheels catching salmon. But what amazed me was the vegetables and the produce that they grew. You're not going to find that in the lower 48. You're not going to find cabbage the size of of a football or a basketball. Is it just down here in the lower 48 that we've depleted the soil to the point that it can't grow? Because if you still to this day, I mean, I have friends up in Alaska that I see what they grow, and it's huge. What is the difference between that environment and what they've done to our environment in the lower 48?
Well, again, they've through decades of using these products, these chemicals, have killed, the microorganisms, the worms, everything in the soil for the most part. And so those microorganisms are not there to ingest and convert nutrients, heavy metals, and everything else in the soil and convert them into bioavailable nutrients for crops, right? So, for instance, the best way to put it is you can take the correct type of microorganisms, the blends, and the nutrients, put it in the vortex, spray it on the soil, and those microorganisms will go to work and they will convert synthetic chemicals and heavy metals into essential fatty acids, break them back down into their elemental state to make them bioavailable. So you can turn poison into actual nutrients that the plants will actually use, and it will help their immune system, right? So microorganisms are the key to life in general. And mycelium, which is the fungal string and network underneath the soil that doesn't get plowed up every year, healthy soil. So if I have a mycelium network and microorganisms underneath a forest, for instance, and part of that forest burns down, well, that mycelium network of a gazillion miles of the mycelium and the microorganisms, which is a whole nother universe that has not been. The experts don't know shit about it hardly, right? They're still trying to figure it out. But that mycelium will carry nutrients from the good part of the forest over to the burnt part to deliver those nutrients directly to that part of the forest that needs to be repaired. And that's the intelligent design that our creator put into just the dirt, right? So when people come to the understanding that an acre of soil should have over a ton of living organisms in it, the microorganisms, the fungi, bacteria, all these different things. And right now, you go out to an average farm field and it's got less than 100 pounds, and most of those are GMOs. They're not even real. So you've gone from over a ton to less than 100 pounds of living organisms in a soil, and most of them aren't, you know, real organisms to begin with. That tells you how severe the situation is, right? That's how bad it is. So when you do that to the soil, you do that to the water, you do that to the air, you do that to every living organism, including mankind. And that's why everybody's so sick, is that's a big part of it, right? That's a huge part of it.
Well, where are we going with this genetically modified meat? I mean, I don't do very many shows like this like I used to, but I do want to understand because you see this 3D meat, this, and things of this coming up and genetically modified meat and what what are the precursors? What is going to happen to these people that are eating this genetically modified meat, this fake meat, this 3D printed meat? What is going to happen to the culture in our society from eating this byproduct?
Well, you can look around you now and see what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I know. I get it, but I want you to explain to the
yeah.
people, bro.
So, well, it was first, I had several conversations, and he's a great human being. One of the guys that were on the team that created the first GMO crop, which was cotton, he was part of that team. And, one thing about him is he's very honest, and he realized that he needed the money, he needed the medical plan, he needed, that package with that corporation to do that, to treat his daughter who was very sick. He couldn't afford, without that job, to do it. So he did that, and he's extremely intelligent. But he got to a certain point where, he finally, his moral compass just took over, and he said, "I can't do this anymore." And so the crops being GMO'd to survive the spray of the poisons when nothing else can. Then you've got GMO microorganisms, you've got GMO'd insects, you've got GMO'd trees, you've got everything's being GMO'd to survive the poison, all the poisons, right? And that's what they're doing. But the problem is that here's the bigger picture. It's not through a moral compass ultimately that this is being controlled from the very, very top, the people that control the money and everything else. This is, if you truly think about it, again, if it's our DNA that is the signature of our creator, if you believe in a creator, or we'll just say nature, then by altering the genetic makeup of plants, insects, microorganisms, animals, humans, every living thing on this planet, what image are they created in then?
Yeah.
Whose image are they created in? So we know there's this, when we talk in the world of religion, that there's an entity that is the great deceiver, the great mimicker, right? The fake.
Yeah.
Everything's fake, right? A 6-colored rainbow, for instance, instead of 7. All of these things, and I don't have a problem with anybody the way they want to live their life. Just don't do it to kids and animals. But what I'm saying is it's all about, what's the big picture? If your DNA is no longer your DNA, are you even human? And there was a court case, a Supreme Court case, where they said that DNA cannot be patented, again, because that's created by nature. But if it has been altered, so the process of altering DNA and creating a different DNA, that process and that DNA then was patentable. So if my DNA has been altered from what I was given at birth by whatever it is that's been put into my body,
Yeah.
am I any more human, and can it be deemed crimes against humanity if I'm no longer deemed human and I'm a patented property of said corporation? So that's been an argument, and there's a lot of people who will argue for and against and all this sort of stuff, but ultimately that's what it comes down to. The moral question has to be, do you want your original DNA or not? That's what it comes down to. And by allowing these people to put these things into your body, um, there's that thing, that electronic signature thing when you pick
Yeah.
up your products at the pharmacy. Well, you're signing. People might want to ask them to print that off and read the pages of that,
Yeah.
because you're given permission to do anything they want to you, and that's something that people need to consider.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump on two comments here real quick. A tremendous friend of mine from New York. He says, "Two legends. I am sorry that I'm late to the event. Thank you for the discussion. You're welcome, John." And then my other buddy Gio, he says, when you're mentioning about the crops need to be chemically modified, do you think polyculture will help to avoid chemicals on crops?
Well, it comes down to what you're growing crops with. That's the inputs are all that dictates everything, because if I grow plants with nutrient rich, nutrient well bioavailable nutrients that give a plant an immune system, then they give off enzymes that protect them from insects wanting to eat them. Their root systems give off signals to prevent some weed growth, obviously, and they just have an immune system, so they can grow without the fungicides, pesticides, herbicides, all that stuff. And if you use cover crops, so you notice farmers are putting giant drain tiles in their farms everywhere to run the water off, so it's preventing soil erosion. Well, the problem with that is if water runs off of either dead soil that's been killed by these chemical processes, or even faster by drain tiles that are put in these farm fields, you're running all that because the soil won't hold water correctly anymore like it used to.
Yeah, yeah.
So the water's all running off, going into creeks and rivers and away from that area geographically. Then you don't have proper evaporation rates to create more rain. So you're turning literally the United States into a desert is what you're doing essentially. The Dust Bowl of the 1930s, um, they killed the soil with monocropping, right?
Yeah.
And turning the soil to clay, to dust, taking all the nutrients out of it, and literally just murdering the soil. That's why they had the Dust Bowl, and that's why we had a lot of, uh, you know, literally virtually famine going on during the Great Depression and all that stuff. Later on, there was food shortages because all the soil was dead. So they're turning the United States unwittingly into a desert. It's called desertification,
Yeah.
um, and that's what's taking place. And so it look, I mean, big ag folks, family farmers. At least we can get through to them. We can show you how to, and I can put you in touch with the experts to teach you how to reverse all of this and have soil that's from tan to back to nutrient rich jet black soil over a period of time, and reverse all of this. That has to be done, or people better go back to growing food in their own yards for food security. uh, because throughout history, governments numerous times have used food as weapons or lack thereof. And so
Well,
that's
they're
right
starting to
now
utilize it
the food
now.
in the United States. Think about this. Fighters used to come to me from all over the world and train at my gym, and they would go to the grocery stores to get their groceries, their food for their training camps, and they would come back to the gym that night and they'd go, "Holy shit, like there's nothing edible in your stores." This is 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, your stores are full of nothing but poison. This is incredible. Now we know why Americans are so sick and obese. And I said, "Yeah, I know." And they said, "This is on purpose." From outside Europe or Brazil or Asia, and they would come here and see that and go, "There's no other answer than this is on purpose." This is war on the American people. And so you got to recognize the problem to be able to protect yourself.
My brother Steve Schroeder says there's no water in Arizona. Farms been shutting down. It falls in line with what you're saying. And then you look at right now, people are talking about the major weather occurrence on the West Coast. Nothing is regular anymore. Everything is manipulated. People. I hope you don't get mad because I want to touch on this for just a second, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. But what if you could give a mindful thought on global warming stations? What would your thought process be on that? Because people that I try to explain about the ability to change weather with these global warming stations, people don't believe me. I've showed them documentaries on them, and it's like they don't understand that they're manipulating. For example, 3 weeks ago, we got 8 inches of snow, 9 inches of snow over a period of 3 days. Temperature never went above 9 degrees, but yet the snow melted. I've never seen snow melt at 9 degrees. So the theories that what I'm digging into, because I'm a geek,
Right.
but what's your thought processes on these global warming stations, and what are their purposes?
Well, you know, climate crisis is, if we look at a graph, and I've talked to the guys that are honest about this, that aren't being paid to skew things. If we go back 700 million years ago, when the entire planet was supposedly a jungle, and these come from core samples in Antarctica and other places around the world, that the carbon, the CO2 in the atmosphere was about 7,000 parts per million. So pay attention to these numbers, because this will tell you everything. So 7,000 parts per million. And then you fast forward to the end of the last, say, mini ice age. It was from 7,000 at its highest to its lowest of 180 parts per million. And then these experts would say at 140 parts per million, everything on Earth dies. Right? So we go from 7,000 parts per million when the world's a jungle to 180 parts per million at the end of the last ice age, telling me 140 parts per million, everything dies. And currently we're right at about 400 parts per million, and it's doing this and plummeting straight into the basement. So if we have common sense, which I hope most of the people listening to this, I'm sure the people listening to this do, then we recognize that if we're at 400, the high was 7,000 when everything was a jungle, and we're at 400 and heading towards the basement, wouldn't we want to increase the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere so that more plants would grow to create more oxygen for us to breathe, right? That's just the common sense part of it. So when we go back to, they're talking about sequestering soil or sequestering carbon in the soil. I don't have a problem with that part, because the products that we use are carbon bonded, and they help. Well, that's putting carbon into the soil, right? And there's other, like cover crops help sequester and keep carbon in the soil. Say a windstorm comes along and blows dirt up into the air, that's carbon into the atmosphere or whatever, right? So they're trying to lower that. That's their idea of it. But anyway, that's goes into soil erosion, which we don't want. So that part being said, these scientists even went as far as said everybody on the planet should start their diesels and their cars immediately and run them simultaneously to put more carbon into the air, because that's, so the oceans. So they think that they try to educate you that carbon going or CO2 going up raises the temperature of the earth, right? Yeah. It's actually the reverse. It's hundreds and hundreds of years after a slight temperature increase that then hundreds of years later that the carbon will start to go up. And that's from the slight warming of the oceans, which then the molecular structure of the ocean gets more agitated because it's slightly warmer, and that releases carbon into the atmosphere. So it's actually the oceans that after hundreds and hundreds of years of it being warmer, releasing carbon out of them. And that's my understanding of it. And people will go, you're no expert, you're no scientist, you really don't have to be to look at the data and understand where we've been and where we're headed.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. And so,
look at me. I'm a fight photographer, but I don't watch TV. I decided, I have a very high IQ. I have my master's in engineering science, and I decide to research. It doesn't take a rocket science to look up and understand
data.
what is occurring. Yeah, it's not. I mean, I fall down a couple rabbit holes here and there, and shame on me. Some maybe sometimes, some maybe not. But in essence, what I've learned is the deconstruction of life as I've known it. I'm watching the world that I love fall apart. I'm watching things change that will never be the same again. And I'm on the same path as you. I will die for your children. I will die for my enemy's child. So if I do shows like this and I give people a little bit of information, a little bit of understanding, then at least I've served some purpose, because people can look at Pat Miletich and say, oh, what the hell do you know? You're just a fighter. Well, first and foremost, you're not just a fighter. You understand the body, you understand what nutrients and aspects take to survive as a fighter. You correlated yourself into an industry that's quite demanding, and you did that on a daily basis. You took care of your body like it was a temple. Yeah, we all screw up later in life, but you've created more than just your championships. You created several other world champions. I think you have a little bit of knowledge on stability and health and nutrition at the bare minimum. You know, my brother Steve Schroeder, he put on here bottled water. Never drank bottled water growing up. Liquid gold, money profit. Let me tell you, most people don't even read the damn label on bottled water. If you read the label on bottled water, I don't care if it's Fuji water. I don't care if it's $80 a bottle. It all comes from a water sewage treatment plant. At the end of the day, it's all from a water sewage treatment plant.
Unless a few of them come from actual springs, but I do agree with a lot of that, without a doubt. And a lot of people believe that drinking, it made sense to me, drinking high pH, 8 plus 9 water, alkaline water was going to assist my body in becoming alkaline, where actually a lot of the very knowledgeable real health experts say if you drink that, because your stomach acidity is supposed to be high, right? And you lower that, then you're actually converting your tissue in your muscles, your body, and everything in your organs to become more acidic. So you're screwing up your stomach balance, your gut balance, and it actually screws things up. So there's a lot of people that are proponents for drinking, water that is just below the ideal, or even further below human pH balance, which is right around 7.5. That's where our perfect homeostasis setting is, basically, when it comes to pH balance. So there's so many things I've learned about water. So water, if you think about it, isn't even really water, because it's hydrogen and oxygen, both flammable, right? And it's the structure of the water molecule that creates health, or of course the chemicals and things like that are in it don't help. But there's guys out there that are quantum physics, water molecular restructuring experts that will run water that's full of even uranium, and it'll come out the other side and it's been converted. It's not toxic anymore. And the molecular structure of the water molecule then traps light at all bond angles, and it creates a gold halo around the water molecule, which is electrons of light that have been trapped and held by that water molecule, which electrons of light are energy. So when you put it in your body, it's going to get into your cell easier, but it's also adding life force energy, they call it, to your cells, right? So again, water is not even water. Like the guys that are far beyond the normal chemist and scientist knowledge, when I listen to these guys talk to other people who have been educated, in esteemed universities, they are literally they're like everything's flipped upside down knowledge wise.
Yeah.
And when they talk and you listen to the feedback from the university educated people and they go, holy shit, I've never thought about it like that. And it's like the simple thinking of, and it had to be explained to me, of the power is not in an explosion, it's in the vacuum after the explosion. That's the way these people think, right? It's completely converse to education, right? And so
Mhm.
these guys work with, these experts work with frequencies. They don't like you knowing about frequencies. They don't want you, the Rife machines and things like that were outlawed in our country, in terms of frequency, that's not something necessarily they want you fiddling around with and learning about, because there's great healing power in it and there's great destructive power in it as well.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that created vertical vortex water machines that, it's, I'm not going to get into too deep to it, but you
Right.
understand what I'm talking about. And
Right.
it's like, it's cutting edge technology, but they don't want it out there.
That's
They just don't.
it's ancient mystery school knowledge though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like this is the stuff, the Library of Alexandria was an arson job. They burned it to the ground with all that knowledge inside of it. They don't want us knowing that stuff. Come on.
Well, they say if you do, erase the past, it becomes a distant memory.
Well, and
And
it's easy then to educate people with lies, right?
yeah,
That's
my brother Phil Dow, he says Pat's an MMA legend and an educated man. I can listen to you guys talk all day. God bless you and stay safe. You too, my brother. See, I love this because, well, let me ask you a couple more. Giovanni says, do you think integrated farming can be a solution for the global warming?
well. Here's the thing again. The destruction of the soil is the climate crisis.
Yeah.
So if we put nutrients, microorganisms back in the soil and stop using chemicals, we're going to fix the soil, and then it will retain water, and then it will rain again properly. All of those things, um, are essential, right? So
Yeah.
when people talk about storms and this and that and weather, weather patterns and everything else, I mean, listen, if and people go, oh, that's just contrails and oh, you're crazy and all this stuff. Listen, we have to first, and I had a talk with one of my state senator friends from another state and asked him a question. I said, are you ever going to like uh, write a bill and sponsor a bill against weather modification in your state? And he goes, I don't even know what you're talking about. And I go, well, okay, well, go research weather modification legislation in Washington, D.C. and your own state. Go look it up, Google it. And then after you've researched all of that, and some of them go back into the 70s or earlier, then research weather modification corporations. And then you'll see a list of numerous weather modification companies. And then you look up the things that they're spraying into the atmosphere, heavy metals, chemicals,
Metallics, yeah.
and then look up what those do to soil, plants, humans, respiratory illness, all the other stuff. And then you have to ask yourself, they're saying that they're spraying it to block the sun from heating up the earth. But sunlight is essential for growing food. Sunlight is essential for the human body to create, vitamin D, and a lot of other things, a lot of other processes on this planet. So why would they want to poison the soil with chemicals and then block the sun from that would damage soil and damage plants and damage us and everything else on the planet? Why would they want to do that? Well, we have to again get to the understanding that maybe, just maybe, the bloodlines that have always run this planet might not care about us. They might consider us cattle. They just might. So if we can at least agree on that after looking through history and all the genocides and the wars and the famines and all the stuff that's taken place, I think we can all agree that, well, the people that control the monetary system and the information system can socially engineer anything they want to happen, as long as people are sick enough and scared enough to do what they're told.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's really what it comes down to. So climate crisis, that comes directly from corporations and the funding and the psychological operation that goes along with what they're doing to our soil and to our earth, right? That's where it comes from.
All you really got to do is pay attention to your damn cat. You open the window, the sun comes through the window, puts a square. Where's your cat jumping? Right into the sunlight.
Right.
You know, common sense. I mean,
yeah.
Right. And I know I'm going to catch ridicule for today's show, but like I said, freedom is my right to express or share my thoughts. Freedom is also the right for you not to join my show or listen to it if you don't agree with it. I'm perfectly fine either way, because I've walked my walk in this life. Nobody can. I don't know anybody that's been through 253 surgeries. I don't know anybody that's accomplished what I've accomplished.
Right.
So really, they can't do anything to me that hasn't been done to me already. I mean,
yeah.
Remember Justin Scoggins, the fighter?
Yeah.
His father, Chris Scoggins, is on here. He says they pay folks good money to put the data on spreadsheets for everyone to understand. Can you? I get that. Can you clarify that for the people, Pat?
Well, it just comes to the scientists that you're paying will come up with the results that you want. That's what it comes down to. That's how it works. And anybody else that their data conflicts with it, or I go, hey, wait a minute, to the head of the county health department, who claims to be a virologist, and we question his data, people freak out, right? They close you down, they shut you down. People can't, certainly not on network TV or cable TV. You can't come out and have the kind of conversation we're having and question, everything that's going on. You'd never be on TV again. And certainly we can't get on TV with these types of viewpoints for a reason, because they control it, right? That's just the way it is. And that's okay. That's okay. Because I think a lot of people are waking up and understanding. But, again, what did they put in the last treatment starting in 2021? What was in there? How is it going to manifest? We've seen a massive uptick in the military in a lot of illnesses, a lot of specific things that have been taking place. And, I've talked to a lot of people that are active duty. It's a real national security crisis. Our health in the 90s, Doc Ed Thomas, a guy that is probably now the best living example encyclopedia of functional fitness on the planet. In the 90s, we were talking, and he goes, you realize that obesity is a national security crisis already. Like the city of Philadelphia can't even freaking hardly get anybody into the military. And that was in the 90s. So now we're 2023. We've got major problems. We got people that can't climb over a wall. We got people that can't run. We've got, a lot of that stuff going on. Well, how do you defend a nation with a bunch of people that are, from the cartoon movie WALL-E? That's a real problem.
I'm a firm believer that maybe you may not agree with me, but I'm a firm believer that as society, unless people stand up, unless people take action, we're already doomed. I mean,
well, I think this is we go back to this. if we believe in a creator and giving us free will, we've all had the free will to make decisions in our lives. And when fear-based conditioning is used, emotions are used for thinking, people make bad decisions. And that is, my fear is this, is that I witnessed mankind, especially Americans, have a knee-jerk reaction to something that none of their children, I think there was like 200 to 300 children nationwide out of tens of millions that died from what came out 4 years ago. That is far less than the flu, and all of those kids had serious comorbidities, right? But they ran out and got those kids the treatments without knowing what was in the treatments. Now think of this. It was called experimental. So I went to, say, for instance, as a parent, one of these parents, and I'm not condemning anybody because they hadn't had the decades of research and experience that somebody luckily I had. They went through a drive-through where they and their kids got an experimental drug given by a complete stranger. Who does that?
Nobody.
Now,
Sure as hell.
millions did that. And that's what I'm talking about, is that people went and got it because they were told by other family members they couldn't come to Christmas. Can't come over for Thanksgiving. Can't see the grandkids or whatever. And you're not going to keep your job. You're not going to be able to feed your kids. You're not going to be able to make your house payment. Think of being put in that position. Think what those people went through, and the ridiculousness of that whole situation based on it being experimental, right? That's some really dangerous Weimar Germany level stuff. So that's
it really is.
That's where we're at. So here's the deal, that a lot of active military who are suffering from the effects of the 2021 treatment, numerous things that were going on for these people, have been helped by certain substances, antioxidants, that are able to chelate those toxins, metals, synthetics out of their cells, and they were able to return to normal health. We're talking people that could run 6-minute miles, who would wake up in the morning with above 180 beats a minute in the morning from sleep. 180 beats a minute. That's what their hearts were doing. Back to being able to run like they used to. That sort of stuff. And that's what we're talking is, that's reality. There's a lot of Americans right now who made that decision, whether they were forced to or whether they did it just because they felt it was the right thing to do, who are now suffering. And we have to have compassion for those people. And we have to ask them, there are solutions. Just, it's okay. It's okay. Even the people that said we needed to be friggin' excluded from society for questioning, that's okay too. But we want you to get better. We want you to be healthy. If you're experiencing damage from this, and just get better, man, so that you can be a testimonial for what happened to you and what you experienced. And then, recovering would be beautiful to see. And then they can be walking testimonials for the truth, right? That's really what it comes down to. That's all I want for people. I want people to be healthy. I want them to have a better quality of life and to not live in fear as best they can. And that, like I said, my fear was that when all of this stuff was going on at the beginning, when it was in China and they were covering it every night on TV and saying, oh, it's going to come here, revving everybody up. And then my governor in Iowa announced the mask mandate and close your private business and all this stuff. So I went to the big grocery store. I'm just going to go check and see how many people are buying into this. And virtually everyone initially bought into it. And I said, we got big problems. We have some pretty serious problems on our hands now. And that was something that I posted on Facebook in 2020. And in January of 2020, it said, and that was when it was in China. It wasn't even here. I said, they're going to create a miraculous cure in less than a year. Understand what this is. And I called it what it was. And I said, do not listen to them. Don't close your business. Don't put on the, and for God's sakes, do not get the treatment. Don't do it. And I think some people listened. We've had a lot of people send us messages and thank us for waking them up, but a lot of people didn't, right? And
Well, I appreciate what you did because, I mean, I did my research, but you guys allowed me to dig deeper. You allowed me to expand my knowledge and comprehend it that much more. Your mutual host from that show was both you guys are just tremendous.
Jeff's brilliant. Jeff's brilliant, and he's a very well spoken and great. He's a great human being, and so we just I don't know how long into the whole lockdown thing, but we just decided we were just going to walk away from the microphone because ultimately, with 5 million listeners or whatever it was, we had climbed in the top 50 in the world in radio and podcasts. Thanks to Joe Rogan helped that. But we still decided to walk away because it seemed like people just didn't seem to be listening a whole lot. Yeah. And we were getting barraged with just so much, I was called a murderer for having a picnic in, what was it, May of that year, 2020, saying, let's just celebrate our freedom. Let's bring the kids out to the park. There was a lot of people at the park. Kids are playing and all that sort of stuff. And people were literally calling us murderers. That's how misguided the American public is right now. So I wouldn't say that we're doomed. I would say that if you want to make a difference, just do the right thing for your kids and yourself and restore your health as best you can. Research the food you're putting in your body, the water you're putting in your body, and do the best you can. And don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe anymore, because there's going to be a lot more of them coming this year.
Yeah, or you can, thanks to you. I mean, even when I did have that virus, I tell you what, watermelon was great, but a lot of people don't understand how much how much healthy aspects of watermelon that is grown properly can provide to a human being. I mean, there are so many vital properties in a watermelon if it's grown without all the pesticides. I mean, because it's like Colin Oyama, when I got that, the first thing he told me was go get watermelon. And I'll tell you what, I didn't go to the hospital. I fought it out. One day I didn't think I was going to make it, but I did. But my immunologist, he told me, he said, hey, bro, and my nephrologist, they both told me, what you did was just nothing short of a miracle, because you had it, you fought it, you didn't have an immune system, but now you have antibodies in your system. And so I noticed a big change in some of the ways my body responded to illness. Before, if the wind blew crooked, I would get sick.
Yeah.
But now, because I fight an illness instead of taking a pill to take care of the illness, I let my body's natural immunities take care of it. I'm finding myself being more and more healthier as I go.
And you'll be more resilient if you choose to, like, for those out there. I mean, we can't trust even the organic labels anymore necessarily, but
no,
go to farmers that grow food organically with actually real natural inputs, at least, at least organic. If you can find, which you're going to be able to find more biodynamic farmers here coming up, because we're educating a lot of people on that type of agriculture. But for instance, the mycelium input that I put into our massive garden on the farm, and then the other microbes and nutrients I put into the soil as well. The tomatoes and the honeydew melon have, let's put it this way, I would have people taste those tomatoes, and they would eat a tomato and go, it's literally, the flavor literally explodes in your mouth, right? And so they go, my God, this, I've never tasted anything like this in my life. And your taste buds are
We're back.
your taste buds are sensors
I can't hear
telling you. Can you hear me?
Lost volume.
Check, 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 check.
I can't hear you. For some reason.
Check, 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 check. Let me see.
I can see you. I just can't hear you. You're muted. Okay.
Can you hear me?
No.
Okay.
They cut us. Yeah. Hey, thanks, brother.
Okay.
I appreciate your piece. I don't know if y'all can still hear me, but we might have just got taken down. I don't know. I don't know if we got taken down. If you can still hear me, somebody please let me know. Okay, you can hear us both. Yeah, yeah, he got cut. I'm clear, but he got cut. Yeah, I had a feeling. See, we went into the show with the understanding that this would possibly happen. I don't care if I can. I'm like Pat. Yeah, you can hear me, but we couldn't hear him. Yeah, right. It was Chris. But you know what? I'm not promised tomorrow, so I'm going to live today. And if I can help and bring somebody on that has the knowledge and the expertise to share, and help your family and give you a different outlook and optimism in life, then I'm going to. John Grady says, I was able to hear Pat. What I think it is they probably cut it on the because I use a third aspect. I'm not on Facebook. I'm away from Facebook, but I wonder if YouTube probably cut me, probably more than Facebook. But Artie says, a banana in the tailpipe, heads up show. Thank you. Hey, he's as real as they come. We kind of knew this was going to happen. We didn't expect to be able to go an hour and 43 minutes like we did, but gosh, Charles says I can hear him. Maybe they cut. Yeah, I could be cut. I don't know right now. You guys can hear me, but I may be cut off somewhere. But it maybe just caused a glitch. I don't know. But hey, I'm glad y'all appreciated the show tonight. I go into surgery tomorrow. I have to be there, I think, at 10 o'clock in the morning for a pre-surgical surgery to get my cervical spine, just ready for whatever the hell they're going to do to me. But I wanted to have, hey, Chris, thank you. And then Monday of next week, get with me and we'll bring Justin Scroggins on. Yeah, get with me, and just I'm only going to need like a day or two to get my voice back. So we should be pretty good on that. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I'm going to try to get off here. I couldn't hear Pat at all. I mean, but God bless you all. Have a good night. And I appreciate you all. Have a good night and God bless.